Hi, it's Katrina. Today we've got fish gods, time travel, and mysteries that baffle science. What if ancient Sumerian texts describe real encounters with extraterrestrial teachers? And could mirrors actually be gateways to other dimensions? We are diving into the unexplained, exploring discoveries that challenge our understanding of reality. Get ready to question everything. The extraterrestrial teachers of Sumer. You ever have one of those days where a fish person just pops out of the ocean and teaches you calculus? Yeah, me neither. Thousands of years ago, a Sumerian was lounging by the rough waters of the Persian Gulf when out of nowhere, a bizarre half-man, half-fish creature emerged from the water and started an impromptu math class. Sounds insane, right? Even crazier is that this man-fish hybrid went on to hold community math classes, teaching all the Sumerians how to add and subtract and do all that other stuff that gives you a headache. The creature also taught the Sumerians how to write, how to practice laws, and how to masterfully build epic pyramids and temples. Basically, this was the ancient world's most overqualified tutor. It might sound like I'm describing some weird fever dream, but according to ancient texts, this all actually happened. The mysterious being was called Oannes, and some researchers, including the legendary Carl Sagan, have asked a daring question. Was Oannes an extraterrestrial, super smart fish, or cosmic teacher? Perhaps a really dedicated substitute teacher from another dimension? Let's get historical. The Sumerians built one of the earliest known civilizations in Mesopotamia, lasting from 4500 to 1900 BC. They had a legend about Oannes, an amphibious being that emerged from the Persian Gulf and spent their days teaching humans the secrets of civilization. According to ancient writers, Oannes had the body of a fish, a second head underneath their fish head, and human legs attached to a fish's tail. It all sounds both terrifying and deeply impractical. And Oannes wasn't the only freaky creature around. Check out this bizarre, seemingly Sumerian slab covered in what looks like fishy alien angel things. Mesopotamia was overloaded with more bizarre creatures than Japanese folklore. Oannes was the first in a series of similar beings called the Apkallu, who allegedly kept returning to check in on the Sumerians, guiding them through science, law, and architecture. Did you remember to balance your checkbook, Sumerians? And what about those triangles? Are they still pointy? Keep in mind, this is the same culture who worshipped the Anunnaki, but the Apkallu were not the Anunnaki, even if their stories are similar. Weirdly, the Apkallu were never described as gods. That in itself is rare, considering that most ancient people loved turning mysterious figures into deities. The Apkallu, unlike the Anunnaki who used humans as slaves, only seem to have one purpose. They only wish to educate humanity. There are even multiple historical references to their visits, suggesting they weren't just a one-off legend. The Apkallu were humanity's earliest babysitters, making sure the first humans were on the right path to building a good society. Of course, you don't have to believe the Apkallu were aliens. There are many scholars who believe the Apkallu story was just a metaphor, a way for the Sumerians to explain how they went from hunter-gatherers to city builders. And then there are those who suggest that the Apkallu were remnants of an advanced, lost civilization, one that was wiped out by a great flood. Maybe the survivors passed their knowledge on to the Sumerians and were later remembered as mystical fish beings. Don't ask me why. One theory that's very interesting is that the Apkallu were Sumerian priests wearing elaborate ceremonial outfits, maybe even fish-scale cloaks to honor their water god Enki. If that's the case, they weren't aliens, gods, or ancient fish people. They were just really smart teachers dressed up. So what do you think? Ancient aliens, lost knowledge, or just a fishy folktale? Let me know your theories in the comments. The mystery of the Kozyrev mirrors. Scientists created something so insane, I'm going to have a hard time explaining it to you. Have you heard of Kozyrev mirrors? They are reflective chambers said to mess with time, consciousness, and even human perception. Meet Nikolai Kozyrev, a Soviet astrophysicist who didn't just want to look at stars, he wanted to figure out what powered them. While most scientists were cozying up to the nuclear fusion model, Kozyrev had a more unusual alternative theory to focus on. He thought, what if stars aren't just burning gas, but drawing energy from time itself? Nikolai thought that if the energy of time could be harnessed, it would make nuclear fusion look like someone rubbing two sticks together. He thought time was an energy force, not just a boring dimension we move through. Unfortunately, the Soviet government wasn't a fan of outside-the-box thinkers, so in 1936, Kozyrev got slapped with a 10-year prison sentence during Stalin's purges. Nothing says scientific progress like throwing your best minds in a labor camp. Instead of breaking him, prison gave Kozyrev time to think. By the time he got out in 1946, he had a radical new theory. Time isn't just something we move through, it interacts with matter and under certain conditions can be manipulated. Human consciousness might be able to access time non-linearly, like deja vu on steroids. These ideas were way too weird for mainstream physics, but they inspired later researchers to create something called Kozyrev mirrors. And that's when things got really strange. Kozyrev mirrors are big, curved spirals made of aluminum. Scientists believed that these specially shaped mirrors could focus certain subtle energies, blocking out electromagnetic interference while enhancing human perception. In the 1990s, a team of Russian researchers, including Alexander Trofimov and Vladimir Kaznachev, ran hundreds of experiments with these mirrors. What happened during these experiments has never been explained. People who stepped inside the aluminum mirrors sometimes saw visions of the past and future. They had out-of-body experiences where they felt like they were floating in another dimension. They had heightened levels of telepathy, as if thoughts could travel across huge distances instantly. The volunteers also experienced environmental effects, like temperature changes, blood pressure spikes, and strange glowing symbols appearing inside the mirrors. Okay, that's all really spooky, but it gets spookier. The research team conducted telepathic experiments involving over 5,000 people from 12 countries. They saw a 95% success rate in transmitting thoughts remotely, which is statistically way too high to be a fluke. And did I mention that UFOs allegedly showed up near the research labs during these experiments? Of course they did. Some scientists believe the answer to these unexplained results lies in torsion fields, a hypothetical type of energy field that exists beyond gravity and electromagnetism. Torsion fields allow for instantaneous communication across space and time. However, the Earth's electromagnetic field normally blocks our ability to sense this. When you weaken the Earth's interference, say by stepping into an aluminum mirror chamber, you might just tap into a universal information network. If this theory is right, humans should all be way more psychic than we are. But things like satellites, cell phones, and your unstable Wi-Fi is drowning out our natural abilities. It's an exciting field of study, don't you think? Too bad it's been shut down. The powers that be blamed the results of the tests on sensory deprivation, claimed torsion fields are nonsense, and swept the whole thing under the rug. Yet many believe the Kozyrev mirrors are a type of lost technology possessed by our ancient ancestors. Would you dare step into a Kozyrev mirror to flex your telekinesis? And now for a quick break because it's shoutout time! I want to give a big thank you to Josh P. and Vicky McGuire for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. White Disc in New Mexico. New Mexico is the land of chiles, breathtaking landscapes, and a steady supply of unexplained aerial phenomena. If you thought Roswell was the state's only claim to UFO fame, think again. Recently, eagle-eyed internet sleuths, aka people who spend too much time on Google Earth, spotted a very suspicious-looking white disk in the remote Sierra Ladrones Mountains. And because the internet is the internet, theories exploded faster than a microwave burrito. Nestled about 34 miles northwest of the Sevilleta National Wildlife Refuge, this thing is just sitting there. It's a perfectly round, 30-foot wide, glaringly white circle. It looks like a crashed UFO. It also happens to be chilling at 7,400 feet above sea level, like it's got nothing to hide, right out in the open. I even have some coordinates for you in case you want to investigate it for yourself. I'll show them on the screen. Crashed UFO, alien trapdoor, or some bizarre backyard DIY project. Some say it's a downed UFO. Some say it's an alien hatchway leading to an underground Martian lounge. A few wild theorists even suggest it's the lid to Earth's actual spice cabinet, though it's mostly Dune fans saying that. But before you start building your alien welcoming signs, let's take a look at what's really going on here. According to archived satellite images, in 1975, the site had a dark, box-like structure on it. By 2003, this round, white disk appeared, replacing whatever was originally there, which means unless aliens really love doing home renovations, it wasn't a recent crash. But if it's not the remnants of a flying saucer, what is it? Science and logic suggest it might be a water tank. People in arid regions use them for wildlife hydration and firefighting. Its bright white color could be a reflective coating to reduce water evaporation. If it is just a water tank, sorry for the most boring explanation in the universe. But the case is still open because, as expected, federal agencies have offered zero comments. UFO hunters argue if the white disk were just a water tank, wouldn't they clear it up with a simple, "Relax guys, it's for thirsty deer"? But no, all we get is radio silence. Very suspicious. A hexagonal pyramid. Where's the one place you would never expect to find a 4,000-year-old pyramid? The Sahara Desert? The snowy tundra of Japan's Hokkaido? Or how about the Eurasian steppe of Kazakhstan? All right, history lovers, Kazakhstan is back on the map. Scientists just dropped a bombshell in the world of archaeology. Researchers unearthed a hexagonal pyramid, and it's making scholars rethink everything they knew about Bronze Age civilizations. Think pyramids are just an Egyptian or a Maya thing? Think again. This six-sided structure is nothing like the towering pyramids of Giza. It's flatter, wider, and perfectly geometric, standing about 10 feet tall with each side stretching 43 feet long. And here's the truly amazing part. Nothing, and I mean nothing like it, has ever been found in the region before. Archaeologists are scratching their heads trying to figure out who built it, why it's a hexagon, and what rituals it may have been used for. Some believe it was a royal tomb or a ceremonial site, possibly designed to honor someone very important. Based on the precision of the stonework, it's clear that these people weren't just stacking rocks. They had a deep understanding of geometry, astronomy, and engineering. Forget the idea that ancient steppe civilizations like the Scythians were just roaming around on horseback without a clue about architecture. Whoever built this thing in the Kazakh wilderness knew exactly what they were doing. The pyramid was made from massive megalithic stones arranged in a perfectly planned formation. It was likely aligned with celestial events, much like other ancient monuments across the world. Some experts think it might have been covered in earth, creating a steppe-style pyramid that has since eroded. Lead archaeologist Ulan called the site's craftsmanship remarkable, noting how the 8 layers of precisely placed stones indicate a highly skilled and organized society. But which society is that exactly? Archaeologists believe this pyramid was built by the Andronovo culture, a Bronze Age civilization that thrived across Central Asia between 2000 and 900 BC. If you haven't heard of them, it's not a problem. Here's what you need to know. They were the first real horse people, domesticating and riding horses long before it became mainstream. They were expert metal workers, producing intricate bronze tools and gold jewelry. They left behind elaborate burial sites, suggesting a highly developed social and religious structure. The last point is key because inside the pyramid's burial chamber, archaeologists found horse remains, gold earrings, ceramics, and bronze artifacts. Someone was buried under this pyramid, and they were definitely a VIP. The big mystery in this scenario is the hexagonal design. Pyramids are common across the world, but normally they are triangular. Some experts think perhaps it was designed to match the movement of celestial bodies, or it could have a symbolic meaning. Hexagons appear in nature from honeycombs to crystal formations. Was this structure mimicking something sacred? The investigation of the Kiri Kunjir pyramid is just getting started. Scientists still have a lot of work to do if they're going to rewrite the history books on Central Asian civilizations. Kazakhstan's ancient past is way cooler than anyone imagined. Do you have a soul? Turns out death might be a little more sparkly than we thought. Scientists are basically having a full-blown existential crisis because of it. Something that happens at the point of death appears to show the soul leaving the body. You've probably heard of near-death experiences before, people who die briefly and come back seconds or minutes later. These people often claim to have seen a tunnel of light, past loved ones, or even cosmic beings. But what if there is scientific evidence of something fantastic happening in the brain at the moment of death? Dr. Stuart Hameroff, an anesthesiologist and professor at the University of Arizona, believes that a mysterious burst of energy detected in the brains of dying patients could be the soul leaving the body. At George Washington University, scientists did something unprecedented. They monitored the brain activity of 7 terminally ill patients minutes before life support was withdrawn. Using EEGs, they recorded the exact moment each patient was pronounced dead. After flatlining, each brain produced a mysterious burst of energy that lasted anywhere from 1 to 20 minutes. Now, let me be clear. When the heart stops, blood flow stops, and without oxygen, brain cells start shutting down, not lighting up like a Christmas tree like what the scientists saw in their EEGs. So what was this sudden spike in activity? The possible explanations are nuts, and some crazier than others. One theory is that the brain simply runs out of oxygen and neurons start firing uncontrollably, creating a cascade of electrical signals. This could explain why people in cardiac arrest report vivid memories or out-of-body experiences. Their brains are flooded with neural activity in their final moments. But here's the problem with that theory. If it's just a random biological glitch, why do so many people report similar, high-structured near-death experiences? Dr. Hameroff has a very different idea. He believes that consciousness isn't just electrical activity between neurons. It happens at a deeper quantum level inside microtubules, which are tiny structures in brain cells. Hameroff's theory is that when we die, our quantum information doesn't just disappear, it leaves the body and disperses into the universe. If someone is resuscitated, this information returns, leading to vivid recollections of the death experience. If the person stays dead, the information remains outside the body, possibly forever. The soul returned to the cosmic void. One of the weirdest things about this study is that the brain activity spike wasn't random. It showed gamma synchrony, a type of brainwave pattern linked to thinking, awareness, and perception. Even after the heart stopped, the brain briefly showed signs of consciousness. And this begs the question, what was the brain perceiving after death? Could this be the moment when people see the light at the end of the tunnel? If you've ever had a near-death experience, be sure to tell us about it in the comments. Do you think the soul physically departs the body after death and goes on a walk around the universe? A Roman cold case murder. There is evidence of a murder that took place 1,800 years ago. We don't have much to go on, but let's give it a shot. Archaeologists in Spain just uncovered a Roman soldier's burial, and it is weird. He was found face down, missing his feet, with a dagger stuck on his back. This isn't your average military funeral. It looks more like a scene from an ancient crime drama. Was this soldier a deserter, a thief, a victim of some brutal Roman punishment, or was he murdered in cold blood? The discovery took place at Cortijo Lobato, an ancient fortress near Almendralejo. Archaeologists were surveying the area before building a solar park, when instead of finding just old walls and pottery, they found the body of a man in a shallow grave near a ditch. Here are the facts that we have to solve the case. The man was between 25 and 35 years old at his time of death. He was buried face down, which suggests he was either a criminal or a vampire. A Roman pugio, or a dagger, was deliberately placed on his back, not necessarily in his back. The difference is important. As for those missing feet, scientists don't know if they were severed while he lived or removed after death. The pugio is our biggest clue. This wasn't just any weapon. Pugios were often carried by Roman soldiers, especially officers and elite troops. The dagger dates to the late 1st century BC, but the burial itself likely happened in the 3rd century AD. At the time, Legio the 7th Gemina was the only Roman legion stationed in Hispania. But here's the thing, this legion wasn't heavily involved in wars. Their job was mostly guarding cities and keeping the peace. Now that you have some context, you choose which theory makes the most sense. One possible explanation is that the soldier was a deserter. In the days of ancient Rome, desertion was one of the worst crimes a soldier could commit. The punishment was a type of execution called fustuarium, in which the deserter's fellow soldiers beat them to death with clubs. Scientists say his missing feet could suggest a punishment for running away. Romans sometimes cut off the feet of deserters to make an example out of them. Another possibility is that this guy was a regular soldier who died in battle. But if that were the case, why the weird burial? Another theory is, could he have been murdered by locals? Romans weren't exactly popular in all parts of Hispania. If he was attacked by local rebels, they might have killed him and buried him in a humiliating way. Face down, dagger on his back, feet removed. What makes all of this even stranger is that the Roman burial was found in a fortress that was already ancient when he died. The fortress of Cortijo Lobato dates back nearly 5,000 years to the Copper Age. This discovery is one of the most bizarre Roman burials ever found, and it could completely change how we understand military discipline, executions, and conflicts in Roman Spain. Which theory of this ancient cold case did you like the most? The sky is shaking. Mysterious skyquakes are freaking everyone out, and scientists have no clue what's happening. Have you ever heard a loud boom out of nowhere and immediately assumed that aliens have finally decided to make their grand entrance? I mean, I haven't experienced it, but others have, and you aren't the only one. Skyquakes have been rattling nerves across the globe for centuries, and scientists still have zero idea what's causing them. These aren't just your average thunderclaps or sonic booms from fighter jets. Skyquakes are terrifying, unexplained explosions that echo through the sky like artillery fire, even when there's not a single storm cloud in sight. Think less gentle rumble and more the sky is throwing a tantrum. They've been heard in India, Japan, the US, and beyond, dating back hundreds of years, and they always seem to show up at the worst possible time, often right before earthquakes. In the US, skyquakes have earned some creepy nicknames like the Seneca Guns in New York's Finger Lakes region. Legendary author James Fenimore Cooper wrote about them in 1850, describing the eerie sounds as deep, hollow, distant, and imposing. Cooper said the lake seemed to be speaking to the surrounding hills, which sent back booming echoes in reply. Similar reports came from New Madrid, Missouri in the 1800s, where eerie booms sometimes preceded earthquakes. In Spokane, Washington, a series of mini earthquakes plus unexplained booming sounds had everyone on edge in 2001. These skyquakes are still happening in modern times. Despite skyquakes making regular guest appearances throughout history, scientists still haven't pinned down a definitive cause. But here are a few theories floating around. Some researchers believe small, shallow earthquakes can produce loud booms. But that's kind of a bunk theory, since a lot of skyquakes happen with no seismic activity at all. Another option is that maybe a fighter jet broke the sound barrier, creating a noise like a sonic boom. It seems plausible until you realize that skyquakes have been reported for centuries. I'm pretty sure there weren't any F-22 Raptors flying around in the 1700s. What about meteorites? Some believe that skyquakes could be linked to meteor showers. Space rocks? Sure, why not add cosmic debris to the list of suspects? Then again, a 2020 study suggested that skyquakes might be some kind of atmospheric phenomenon, meaning the booms are traveling through the air, not the ground. Even official agencies like the National Weather Service and U.S. Geological Survey are scratching their heads. In 2017, the NWS in Birmingham, Alabama, posted on Twitter that they don't have an answer and can only hypothesize. Have you ever heard a skyquake before? Was it scary? Let me know your experience in the comments. A mysterious creature. Ancient rock art might just prove that a mysterious horned serpent was more than just a legend. I'm not talking about Satan. This horned beast was a real animal that mixes history, science, and wild myth. Archaeologists in South Africa stumbled upon a 200-year-old rock painting. No big deal, right? Ancient people loved to doodle on walls. Only this particular painting depicts a tusked, horned serpent that sounds suspiciously like something straight out of Jurassic Park. It's an animal that looks a lot like a dicynodont, a prehistoric tusked reptilian creature that, for all scientists know, could have been the grumpiest thing to ever roam the planet. Think about a Komodo dragon with an even worse attitude. Dicynodons were officially described by scientists in 1845. They lived during the late Permian era from around 270 to 252 million years ago. What's insane is that the ancient rock art made by the indigenous San people predates 1845. So how did the San know about Dicynodons before scientists? Did they actually see one of these creatures? If so, I don't know what would happen to the history books. Dicynodons died in the Permian extinction, wiped out with almost all other life in the world. These weird creatures lived even before the dinosaurs did. Archaeologist Julien Benoit and his team decided to put on their detective hats, which I assume are fossil-dusted fedoras, and take a deeper look. They found that the painting clearly shows a tusked creature with downward-facing fangs. That's something that no modern African animal has, but Dicynodons did. The painting was discovered near a bunch of tetrapod fossils in South Africa's Karoo Basin, an area practically swimming in Dicynodon remains. The San people had long-standing legends about massive, monstrous beasts described as being bigger than elephants or hippos. Benoit and his team suggest that the San may have uncovered Dicynodon fossils themselves and, using their impressive imagination, connected them to their existing mythology. In other words, the San may have been doing paleontology before paleontology was even a thing. Then again, maybe their ancestors rode around on pre-dinosaur monsters. Which do you like the most? Could ancient oracles really see the future? It is the time of the prophecy. Since the dawn of civilization, humans have been obsessed with the future. It's like that one friend who always wants spoilers for a movie before watching it. And because humans had no Netflix in the past, people relied on prophets and oracles to peek into the future. The question I ask you today is, did these prophecies tell us anything useful? Did Nostradamus, the Maya, a bunch of other ancient visionaries crack the code of our world? Nostradamus wrote down 942 predictions, all in vague, poetic riddles. If he were alive today, he'd probably be writing cryptic tweets and getting 1 million retweets for them. One of his most famous predictions reads, "In the year of the new century, in 9 months, from the sky will come a great king of terror. The sky will burn at 45 degrees. Fire approaches the great new city." Sounds eerie, right? Some say this predicted the 9/11 attacks. Others argue you could twist the words to fit any disaster in history, really. That's the thing with Nostradamus. His predictions are just vague enough to mean just about anything. It's like when you read your horoscope and it says you will face challenges today. Like, wow, that's every single day for every person on Earth. Not very unique at all. If you think today's apocalyptic movies are intense, just crack open the Bible's book of Revelation. This thing is packed with disasters. War, disease, fire, plagues, you name it. And don't forget the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. People love linking Revelation to global catastrophes. Whenever there's war or famine or pandemics, people point to the book of Revelation and its prophecies of doom. But according to scholars, the book of Revelation was never meant to be a cosmic spoiler alert. Rather, it was meant to give early Christians hope. Did the author of Revelation truly see the end of times? The Romans had their oracles too. They weren't just about gladiators and togas. They had mystical women who gave cryptic answers to Rome's biggest questions. When the Roman Senate stressed over a war, oracles would be questioned about possible outcomes. One of the most famous oracles, the Sibylline oracles, had some serious doomsday vibes. They were always going on about disasters caused by greed, corruption, and overall human foolishness. But they were very cryptic in their prophecies, just like Nostradamus. Meanwhile, the Hopi people of North America were dropping prophetic knowledge centuries ago. Their petroglyphs warn of environmental destruction, societal decay, and greed leading to catastrophe. Unlike Nostradamus, who wrote in riddles, the Hopi were very clear. They left behind warnings that to mess up nature and the environment would doom humanity. The secrets of kissing. Scientists have long wondered what the point of smushing our lips together is. That universal, sometimes awkward, mostly pleasant, but often sort of weird thing that humans do, like kissing. You know it. Why do we do it? The reason is so shocking that you may never want to do it again. According to Adriano Lamera, an evolutionary psychologist from the University of Warwick, the answer is simple. Our ancient ancestors were really into grooming each other, so we never stopped. We went from picking bugs to picking up dates. A few million years ago, primates spent a lot of time grooming, picking parasites, dirt, and whatever else out of each other's fur. Casual bonding activities. And sometimes, when fingers weren't enough, they would use their lips to suck out whatever grossness was left behind. Next up, evolution. As our human ancestors lost their fur, grooming became less about hygiene and more about social bonding. According to Lamera's theory, one part of grooming stuck around, the final lip-based moment of contact. The translation here is that grooming turned into kissing, because even after we stopped needing to de-flea each other, it just felt too good to give up. In a way, kissing might be a super simplified version of what our ancient ancestors were doing for millions of years, just without the lice removal part. And here's where things get really strange. Everyone kisses, right? Wrong. People in Western societies do, but not all societies. A 2015 study published in American Anthropologist surveyed 168 cultures. They found that only 46% of them practiced social or romantic kissing. That means more than half the world doesn't smooch, which is shocking when you watch nothing but American media. But what does all this mean, though, scientifically? Kissing might not be as deeply rooted in evolution as scientists thought. It could have been accidentally discovered, like fire, coffee, or that time someone decided to eat the first oyster. Some cultures may have just skipped kissing altogether. Probably the same ones that don't put pineapple on pizza. At the end of the day, scientists still don't know why people kiss. Lamera's theory makes a lot of sense, especially when you consider that our closest primate relatives, chimpanzees and bonobos, also kiss in their own weird little ways. But even Lamera admits it's just a theory and he could be completely wrong. The next time you lean in for a kiss, maybe go ahead and check for lice too. Just like our ancient ancestors did. Now that's love.
Thanks for watching! Be sure to stay tuned for extra content you might have missed. Humanoid skull. In 2007, Danish contractors replacing old sewage pipes on Sealand Island discovered a bizarre human-like skull with huge eye sockets and fangs. The Principality of Sealand is already a strange and controversial place to begin with. It consists of an abandoned World War II fortress in the North Sea called Rough Tower, where an estimated 27 residents live. They claim that the structure constitutes an independent sovereign state, but have failed to establish it as an official nation-state or gain recognition as such. Workers allegedly found the strange skull underneath a building that once belonged to a butcher while removing century-old pipes. Experts at a veterinary college in Copenhagen could not link it to any known species on Earth, and subsequent carbon dating at the University of Copenhagen's Niels Bohr Institute estimated its age at around 800 years old. Neolithic artifacts, including animal bones, stone axes, and equipment, were also found at the site, but could not be linked to the skull, which some speculate belonged to a human-alien hybrid. There is a long-standing rumor among conspiracy theorists that Sealand once served as a meeting place for members of a secret society of writers called the Order of Pegasus Light, which they claim was formed during the 1300s. Many, if not most, believe that the skull, which remains shrouded in mystery to this day, is simply a hoax. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. The works of the old men. There are more and more large, ancient geometric stone structures coming to light every year. These stone geoglyphs can be found spread throughout Syria, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan, occupying an even bigger area than the famed Nazca Lines of Peru. They depict various designs of different sizes, including kites and wheel-like shapes. From the ground, they are almost impossible to identify, but from the air, they are clear for the eye to see. The local Bedouins call the stone structures the works of the old men, but very little else is known about their origins since they are so old. Who built them, and why? Most are estimated to be somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 years old, but other archaeologists have found two wheel-shaped patterns that date back some 8,500 years, also making them older than the Nazca Lines in Peru, which are estimated to be around 2,000 years old. Most people didn't know anything about them until they were witnessed from the sky in 1927 by British Royal Air Force Flight Lieutenant Percy Maitland as he flew over a lava field in Jordan. Some of the geoglyphs look like spoked wheels, while others are simply circular and others look like kites. Most believe that they had astrological or seasonal significance to their creators. Some of the wheel-shaped structures align with the winter solstice, but others don't seem to coincide with anything at all. The kite-shaped structures were possibly used for hunting, with a structure that could have been used to funnel animals into an enclosed area, making it difficult for them to escape before becoming the next meal. Another possibility is that the kites were used to prevent camels from straying. No excavation has been performed on the works of the old men yet, but doing so would probably provide further clues about where they came from. Fisher Canyon footprints. In 1917, a miner from the Nevada Mining Company claimed to find a 200-million-year-old shoe print. Otherwise known as an out-of-place artifact, the miner claimed that he saw a fossil in some loose rocks and that it was actually a shoe heel imprint stuck in limestone from the Triassic period. An out-of-place artifact is an object that does not seem to belong where it's found or when it dates back to. Now known as the Fisher Canyon footprint, this artifact is a fossilized piece of limestone that appears to contain a shoe print. What do you think? There are 3 different stories about the fossil's discovery, although it seems like besides the miner story, the most favored but still unproven version is that it was found sometime before 1917 by John T. Reed, an amateur engineer and archaeologist in Fisher Canyon, Nevada. Some people have erroneously identified the fossil as being imprinted onto 5-million-year-old coal. It's actually limestone and was reportedly dated to over 200 million years ago. One of the alleged discoverers, Alfred E. Knapp, claimed that the shoe print was made when the rock was in what he called its plastic state. The fossil's age and authenticity as a shoe print were supposedly verified by an expert named Samuel Hubbard, leading to questions about how a shoe-clad human could have possibly walked the earth so long ago. But these claims have never been substantiated, and geologists who have examined the artifact believe that it's a natural formation and not a shoe print at all. The Philistines. Archaeologists know very little about the historically infamous Philistines, a group of people who arrived in the Levant during the 12th century BC, when many Middle Eastern and Greek societies were falling. The Levant was an area that included Israel, Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria. They left behind no texts of their own, so we mostly know about them through ancient Egyptian and Syrian texts, as well as the Hebrew Bible, which consistently describe the Philistines as violent barbarians with no appreciation for art or culture. But who were these people? Ramses III fought them in battle, and the ancient Israelites also fought with them many times. The story of David and Goliath comes from a story about the giant Philistine leader Goliath and David, who would go on to become king of Israel. Over the past 100 years or so, archaeologists have been looking for evidence of the Philistines to try to learn more about them. While there are a handful of artifacts that experts consider to be distinctly Philistine, they don't always agree on what qualifies as a Philistine artifact or burial. In 2016, however, archaeologists uncovered a large cemetery outside the ancient city of Ashkelon, which the Philistines controlled from the 12th century BC to the 7th century BC. It contained the remains of 211 people, which date back to the time the Philistines were present there. The discovery is the first of its kind, finally allowing us to find out more about who these mysterious people were. DNA testing on remains from different time periods suggests that the Philistines came from Crete, Greece, Sardinia, and the Iberian Peninsula, which corroborates the historical records other societies kept about them. Within centuries, the Philistine burials had a genetic signature very similar to that of the local population, indicating that they began intermarrying and having children with locals quickly after their arrival. Despite this, they appear to have remained culturally distinct. But there are still many mysteries to unravel about the Philistines, including the possibility that their origins may be more varied than the evidence has shown so far, especially since they were a migratory group and may have mixed with various local populations along their journeys. The mysteries of Uruk. The ancient Mesopotamian city of Uruk was founded around 4500 BC. It was home to the famous King Gilgamesh and the tale of his quest for immortality. Located in the southern region of Sumer in modern-day Warqa, Iraq, it was considered one of the world's first known true cities with urbanization and state formation. It transitioned from agricultural villages to a large urban center with traders and colonists. Uruk is where the first ever writing system was developed and where the first monumental stone architecture emerged. Its residents designed the ziggurats, which were rectangular, stepped towers and probably inspired the story of the Tower of Babel. Here is also where the cylinder seal was invented that the ancient Mesopotamians used to mark their personal property and sign documents. It was the largest and most influential Mesopotamian city at a time when the region was rapidly urbanizing, acting as its primary trade and administration hub. Uruk thrived from the time it was founded until roughly 300 AD, when people began leaving. Pretty much all the excavation sites throughout Mesopotamia contain artifacts from Uruk, such as statues and bowls, which act as a testament to the ancient city's far-reaching power. One strange artifact, which was discovered at Uruk itself, is a sculpture of a priest encased inside a decorated sphere. Not much is known about this, so if you have any ideas, let me know in the comments. Despite this, questions linger among experts about what led to Uruk becoming the world's first city, why it was more powerful than other, more strategically located cities, and how it exercised its local and regional authority. It seems that its rulers had a very aggressive expansionist policy, although it was sometimes subjected to foreign rulers. However, despite who was in charge, it remained a significant city for several civilizations that ruled over Mesopotamia. And now for number 5, but first, it's shout-out time! Want to give a big thank you to JZG for sharing their excitement with everybody, and Colorado Coin Hunter. Thank you so much! If you are new here, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and join the Origins Explained family. Fuente Magna. You've probably heard of the Rosetta Stone, a granite stone containing inscriptions that played a major role in deciphering ancient languages. A similar stone was discovered in 1958 near Lake Titicaca in Bolivia. The large stone vessel was called the Fuente Magna Bowl and nicknamed the Rosetta Stone of the Americas. This highly controversial discovery features inscriptions in 2 languages, a Proto-Sumerian ancient alphabet and a local script of the ancient Pucara. This artifact begs the question of whether ancient Andean people somehow interacted with the Sumerians, despite these regions being separated by thousands of miles and located on different continents. A farmer accidentally came across the object and it was taken to the city of La Paz. Bolivian archaeologist Max Portugal Zamora attempted to decipher the strange inscriptions shortly after the bowl was discovered. He was unsuccessful, and for the next 4 decades, the Fuente Magna sat in storage. Then, an ancient languages expert, Dr. Clyde Ahmed Winters, identified the unknown language as a 5,000-year-old script once used in the Sahara region, and deciphered the meaning of the text, which appears to be a religious dedication to a fertility goddess. But how did this bowl with Proto-Sumerian inscriptions end up in Bolivia? Several researchers believe that perhaps Sumerian people settled in Bolivia sometime after 2500 BC. They were known to sail the Indian subcontinent and may have entered a current that took them to the Americas. Perhaps here, while searching for food, they encountered the Pucaras, and that some chose to stay and make a new life, and the cultures intermingled. But for now, nobody knows for sure, and researchers continue to debate the topic. Hopefully, more artifacts like this will be found, and further research will help tell the story of this artifact. History is full of surprises. Garry Wall. Late last year, archaeologists in western Iran discovered the remains of a 71-mile-long ancient stone wall that was practically unheard of in the academic world. Locals, of course, had known about it for a long time, calling it the Garry Wall. The structure is poorly preserved, making it difficult to calculate its original dimensions. The researchers estimate it was 13 feet wide and 10 feet high. It was constructed from a mixture of local materials, including cobbles, boulders, and gypsum mortar, and required a great deal of labor and time to build. Along the wall, there are remnants of structures that have been destroyed. The archaeologists believe it was built between the 4th century BC and the 6th century AD based on pottery found alongside it, but they do not know who built it or why. Their best guesses so far are that the wall served as a defensive purpose or held symbolic meaning. It may have marked the border of an ancient empire, perhaps the Parthians or the Sasanians, who were famous for building castles, organizing cities, and irrigation systems, so they would have had the power to build this enormous wall. The Garry Wall is one of several ancient walls throughout Iran, with the others being found in the northern and northeastern parts of the country. Swiss Stonehenge. Lake Constance is a 207 square mile body of water shared between Switzerland, Germany, and Austria. In 2015, archaeologists discovered a series of bizarre man-made stones or cairns in the Swiss portion of the lake, 15 feet below the water's surface. They returned to the site late last year to conduct more research. The stones, which range in size up to 8.3 feet wide, are thought to be a Neolithic monument. They run parallel to the Swiss shoreline and are spaced evenly apart. Carbon dating on stones from a certain section of the formation showed that they were placed there around 5,500 years ago. At the time, the site was likely either located along the shoreline or in shallow water. The archaeologists who made the discovery claim that the arrangement of the stones indicates that they were placed there by humans, not nature, ruling out their initial suspicion that the stones were possibly remnants that fell to the bottom of the lake from a glacier that was in the lake around 18,000 years ago. Scientists are unsure of the stones' purpose, and an international team of researchers plans to carry out further analysis on them in hopes of learning more. And while the nickname Swiss Stonehenge quickly took hold, experts asserted that they had nothing to do with this and were not trying to compare the underwater rocks to Stonehenge. But it is catchy. Vikings in North America. For a long time, there was only one confirmed Viking settlement in the New World, located at Las Meadows in northern Newfoundland. But archaeologists have now discovered at least 3 former settlements that the Vikings may have occupied. They believe that places mentioned in Viking sagas about their voyages to the New World, including Helluland, Markland, and Vinland, can be found in modern-day Baffin Island, Labrador, and elsewhere in Canada. In 2016, a team of archaeologists announced the discovery of the Point Rosé site in Newfoundland. Radiocarbon dating of artifacts at the site, including a dirt structure and a suspected hearth, placed the item sometime between the 9th and 13th centuries. Another Newfoundland site, called Sop's Arm, bears evidence of large animal traps called pitfalls, which no indigenous group of North America was known to use. This was a Viking strategy. On Baffin Island above the Arctic Circle, researchers found possible evidence of metalworking tools and what appear to be the remains of a building. There are numerous other theories about potential Viking settlements, but no evidence of them has turned up yet, and the sites containing archaeological evidence have yet to be confirmed as genuine Viking encampments. Indus script. The writing system of the Indus Valley Civilization, which flourished around 4,000 years ago in modern-day Pakistan and northwest India, is one of several ancient languages that experts have not yet deciphered. Their confusion is not for lack of trying or for lack of evidence, considering thousands of short inscriptions have been discovered. Most of these inscriptions contain only 4 or 5 characters, and nobody seems to agree on how to read them. In fact, experts also disagree on the underlying language behind the writing, with some even claiming that the characters are symbols with no direct connections to speech. These conflicting theories make any proposals about what the inscriptions translate to even less credible. Knowing the meaning of the language would potentially provide clarity to rival ethnic groups who claim to be ancestors of the Indus Valley Civilization. Scholars invested in the matter have actually gotten many scary threats. In 2004, an anonymous donor offered a $10,000 reward to anyone who discovers an Indus text containing over 50 characters, which would make the decipherment process much easier than it is with the short samples that are currently available. The offer still stands today. Thanks for watching! Let me know your favorite in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time! Bye!